Dear friends from St. Christopher's Hospice, I've promised Dion and Katie that I would write something to explain the reasons why the artist Valentino Giampaoli, here beside me, his idea for creating this sculpture that stands for the award Movimento, Hospice, Marche. When I commissioned this work to him, he asked me to give him some materials so that he could inspire himself to create this piece. And I gave to him one lecture by the Italian philosopher Umberto Curi, about living well right to the end, and some books that told the story of St. Christopher's Hospice and Cicely Saunders. He read everything and then he came back with this suggestion, and he explained why he decided to do this. The title of this sculpture is Passage, End and Return. And the title was taken from the lecture of Umberto Curi, in which the philosopher explained that Seneca once was asked by one of his pupil, Mors, quid est? This means, what does death mean? And he answered, aut finis, aut transitus. It's either an end or a passage. Then, after, with Christianism, it reinforced the idea also of Reditus, return. And that was what is behind as a message behind this sculpture. This surface would represent life, the visible part of life. And this would be the passage. It depends, can be the passage or it can be also the end, because this sculpture is intended also to be fixed on the wall like this. So the sculpture is not only what is visible, but it's also and mainly maybe what is not visible. What is not visible, so what is beyond it. And in a certain way it has to do with death. And so he built this passage, cutting with different angles. Here we have one angle that we see, it suggests the entrance, and here also it's an angle, and it suggests the thing that comes from visible and going to invisible. And here he put this, tried to create this kind of surface that says that in life we have some hints that help us to understand that we are going towards a passage. And these are the things that end. The day ends when the sun sets, goes down. The seasons end and it starts another season. We have illness, difficulties, and that's what represents this small difference of texture. if we look from behind, also from behind there is the same kind of cuts. So it may be life is not something that is started when we are born, but first maybe it's the return from something, or maybe we are going back to something. It's the return. He also was inspired by Fontana, that made this pictures with cutting the canvas. He cut the canvas so that the observer could imagine something that is behind a third dimension in a two-dimension piece of art. Well, this is a sculpture. It's three-dimensional, but in a certain way it also reminds a two-dimension object. He has chosen stones that were not perfect, in the sense that there was some signs. Because for him it was important, for instance in this one, there is this sign here that maybe in Italy would be considered a defect, whereas in Japan, for instance, it would be considered something that gives value to the stone, because it tells its story, it's the things that the stone went through. And the same thing is for our lives. The things that sign us, the scarves that we have from life, doesn't make necessarily us ugly. Maybe yes, but also tells the stories of the things that we lived. From the story, the biography of Cicely Saunders and St. Christopher's Hospice, Valentino took the idea about making something that looked like a window, thinking about David Tasman, that was the first person who gave something to Cicely Saunders, who left something to Cicely Saunders, so that she could buy the first window of the house that she had in mind to build, that would become St. Christopher Hospice. And so this sculpture represents very well this idea of life, of end of life as part of life itself, and maybe give us some suggestions to what can be after. So mystery, what the things that we cannot know, and that only an artist like Valentino can represent without words, but with his art. Thank you, Valentino. Thank you.
Thank you.